And we are very, very happy that you are all able to join us today. All of you are located in Las Vegas. I'm in Chicago, and our fantastic panel today are in Bordeaux in Germany. And this is a campaign that is funded by the European Union, but it brings together both the wines of Germany and Bordeaux. And I've been able to host a couple of these tastings already, and they've been fantastic. It's really, really interesting to put winemakers together from these two very different winemaking places. But we, as you'll see, I think in the presentation and throughout the tasting, there's a lot of commonalities and places to meet. And we have a fantastic panel here today that I'm going to get to and introduce in just a moment. But I'm going to just, I'll probably throughout the presentation jump between the PowerPoint and the this gallery view, which is what I'm viewing this tasting in today, so I can see all of you. Please feel free to come on camera so we can see all of you if you like. It would be really fun to interact with you as we progress through the tasting. But let me jump back to the PowerPoint, the presentation, so I can just take a little bit of housekeeping here. The webinar is being recorded. We'd just like to remind you of that. It's being recorded for quality and training purposes. So just wanted to give you that FYI. We really encourage your participation throughout. So I think it would be great if you want to come on live and ask a question live on camera. That's great. If you'd rather type a question or a comment, please do so in the chat, not the Q&A, but use the chat feature. And I can answer throughout, or maybe our panelists could jump on and answer your questions. But the whole point here is we want to make it really interactive and hopefully really fun. So, so maybe just to get the chat warmed up, who's interested in coming on and doing a sensory evaluation with the producer? We want you to taste these wines and give your impressions with the producer here today. So you know, hopefully type your name in there if you want to jump in and do some tasting. We encourage that for sure. Let me introduce the team of experts, the panel today. One thing I have to say right here at the beginning is that it's harvest right now in Germany and in Bordeaux. It's a very, very busy time of year, so we're always really appreciative of our of the time that our producers and panelists give us. But I think especially now, given it's so busy at the wineries right now, thank you very much to our team of experts, our panel. Andrea Perrin was going to join us from Chateau Carbonieux today, but because of the harvest, wasn't able to join us. I feel really comfortable talking about that wine. I've been to the estate several times, and so I'll kind of guide you through that tasting. But at the first part of this tasting, I'll be tasting that wine along with Katharina Moritz from Weingut Domdekant Werner from the Rheingau. And so, Katharina, would you like to say hello?
Hello to everybody.
Hello, welcome. We also have Louisa Nguyen from Chateau Chantegrive in the Grave. And Louisa, maybe say hello to everyone.
Yeah, hey everybody.
Great. Well, we're going to pair Louisa with Stefan Pauli from Weingut Dr. Bergweiler, Pauli Bergweiler in the Mosel. Stefan, would you say hello?
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Stefan. And we also have Brigitte Roulier-Lucert from Chateau d'Allam in Fronsac. Brigitte.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Thank you, Brigitte. And she'll be, we're pairing her up with Anne Eiffel-Spohr from Heinz Eiffel, from Weingut Eiffel-Pfeiffer. Anne, would you say hello?
Hello, everybody.
Great, so that is our panel today. This should be a really, I think, interesting discussion. And I thought of a few maybe themes or topics that we could cover while we're tasting these wines. I thought it'd be really, really sort of an interesting point to start some conversation. But just keep in mind, these are just starting points for our conversation today. So feel free to interact with our producers, ask them really anything that might be on your mind. We don't have to necessarily stick to this strict agenda, but with our first two wines, I'd like to invite Katharina to speak with me about this idea of wines of terroir in an era of trends. We'll get into these a little more in just a bit. The other topic I wanted to cover is the influence of soil on taste, and Louisa and Stefan are going to help talk about that topic. And then finally, with Brigitte and Anne, we're talking about classic styles for modern markets. And we've tried to leave just a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, but feel free, of course, to ask questions throughout the presentation, type them into the chat, and we'll get to hopefully all those questions. So let's start our tasting, starting with Katharina and myself. And the theme here is wines of terroir in an era of trends. I'll explain that in a moment, but because this is a virtual journey, a trip to visit these winemakers through Zoom, we want to take you there as best that we can. So we're trying to do that here through Google Maps. So I think wanted to show you, first of all, of course, we have our big map here of Germany and France, and we'll go to France first, to Bordeaux. And just keep in mind, Bordeaux is a huge, huge region. It's the largest AOC region in France. There's 65 appellations here, lots and lots of producers. And of course, maybe that map right here shows you the city of Bordeaux. And very famously, there's these two rivers, the Dordogne and the Garonne, that meet to form the Gironde estuary. And our first winery that we're tasting from Bordeaux is actually Chateau Carbonieux. And you can see on this map just how close this is to the city of Bordeaux. Carbonieux is located in the Grave region, but specifically they're in the northern part of the Grave in an area called Pessac-Léognan. And I just love that map. It really gives you the sense that you're almost in the suburbs of Bordeaux. So it's quite an old and established region for sure, and the city is sort of encroaching upon the vineyards there, but I think that's really helpful to see. And Carbonieux is a very old estate. I mean, the history here really goes back to the Middle Ages, but lots of great history here. Thomas Jefferson famously visited in 1786. Not only did he taste and love the wines, but he planted a pecan tree in the garden there that's still there. It's an amazing thing to see, but lots of history. It's been in the Perrin family since 1956, and those are the famous soils of the Grave, specifically in this northern part of the Grave, Pessac-Léognan. So I wanted to show you a picture of those gravelly soils. We'll talk about that and how that influences the wine in just a second. I also wanted to introduce Katharina's winery. So for that, we need to go, of course, to Germany, but we're really focused on most of the wine growing regions of Germany are in the southwest of Germany, and a good starting point to visit many of these regions is the city of Frankfurt. It's very easy for us to fly in and out of Frankfurt, and you'll be probably surprised to see just how close that is to the city of Frankfurt and the airport. So there's where the winery is located. We're talking about the Rheingau, and specifically Weingut Werner is on the Main, which is, so there's the Main, and it meets up with the Rhine River in this picture, and then you can kind of see, you can sort of follow Wiesbaden into the heart of the Rheingau there. So there's the winery, and in fact, Katharina, the reason I put this picture in there, it helps me remember to ask you about the harvest, because the harvest is happening right now. So these are the two properties, the two terroirs that we're going to be talking about and tasting today. And I am going to jump off of this presentation, and so we can get to the tasting, get to talking about our theme today. And let's get started. Everybody's got the wines there. Everybody has these open and ready to taste. Maybe what I'll do is to just start with Chateau Carbonieux, and let's pour ourselves a glass and taste this wine together. And I'll do my best to explain what we're tasting, but this is a really, really typical blend. And of course, Bordeaux is almost always a blend, but a typical blend specific to Pessac Léognan. This is one area in Bordeaux where you've got great red wine as well as great white wine. And the whites tend to be Sauvignon Blanc driven. They're Sauvignon Blanc usually with Semillon. And when we talk to Louisa, whose winery is located in a different part of the Grave, maybe she can help explain why the blends sort of change. Sometimes we have a little more Semillon in the wines as we move south in the Grave. But the other thing to keep in mind in this specific area is that these wines tend to be aged in oak. That's not true of all white Bordeaux. Oftentimes it's very crisp, stainless steel, very refreshing in that way. These wines tend to be aged in oak barrels. But what's really important here, and it gets me to the theme, is that this is really one of those great wines of terroir. The soil here very much defines not only what is planted, but how the wines taste in the end. And I think it's this idea of gravelly soil, Sauvignon Blanc in this very gravelly terroir that really brings a lot of the character to the wine. So maybe while we taste that, Katharina, I'm going to ask you to introduce and present your wine.
Thank you very much. So we have something in common with Chateau Gabaudieu. Thomas Jefferson was also in our wine estate in Hochheim, and he took some of our wines and brought it back to Montepulciano, where you still, I think you have still in the US, you still have some of the Riesling plants there. You might be have.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's really cool.
But it's very interesting because we have a memorial for Thomas Jefferson just below our house. So yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that at all. That's great.
We are located in the Rheingau, and Hochheim, even though it's located at the River Main, is traditional, always belonged to Rheingau, so that's a very historical thing. And it's also very historical in that way that the first annunciation of Riesling worldwide, the first written documentation was found in our area, in our village, back in 1435. So we call ourselves here the origin of the Riesling. And so that's the reason I'm the 8th generation that we are totally specialized on Riesling. So with us, it's all about Riesling. We do some tiny bits of Pinot Noir, but more for the self-consumption than for the trade. And so our main focus is really on Riesling. We are small for middle-sized wine estate. And we not have yet started with the wine harvest. So we are just about to, and we have very precise controls outside in the vineyards. It's quite a challenging summer this year. We were suffering for some couple of years with lack of water, and this year we got plenty of rain during the summer. So that's Germany. That's so interesting about us, that weather conditions are different and vintages are different and soil is different.
Yes, and I wanted to say something about the vintage also in Bordeaux, and it's been like this in many places in Europe this year. It's a bit cooler. The harvest is going to happen a little later, and at least in Bordeaux, it will be quite a small harvest. So is it the same in the Rheingau?
It's difficult to do a forecast. So we were quite lucky in our region because many areas suffered from late frost damage and some of damage of hail. And then we had the R region with the awful flooding. So there are many, it's very different this year in the different German wine regions, I think. Talking for us, we will have a smaller but still reasonable vintage. That's what I expect now, but we have to see if it's getting wet now again and we can't bring the wine in time in and we get a lot of botrytis into the wines, then the reduction will be comes very quick. So.
I wanted to talk about maybe some more of the specifics of these two terroirs. At Carbonieux, we're talking about a 92-hectare estate now. More than half of that is planted to red grape varieties, but the portion that's planted to white, it's on many, many different parcels. In fact, Carbonieux is divided into 119 different parcels. And when you look at all of their different soils that they have on the property, there's parts where it's clay gravel, there's parts where it's deep gravel, there's parts of clay limestone, argilo-calcaire. So it's actually, you know, we think of the Grabe, we think of Pesclagnon and these gravelly soils, but the makeup of the soil is quite complex. And then not only is a Bordeaux wine typically a blend of different varieties, but in this case, it's a blend of all of these different soils coming together to bring complexity to the wine. Katharina, can you tell us a little more about the terroir of Dom de Cany?
Yeah, it's a single, so even if it's called Dom de Cany and the wine estate is called Dom de Chant-Werner, so quite similar names, but the Dom de Cany is a single vineyard name. And it's one of our very historic, prestigious vineyards. And the soil is mostly loess and limestone, so it has a lot of deep aromas. It's very good for the dry years. It was very good with the water containment. It keeps water very well. And also this wine is from vintage 2013. So I think that you should keep in mind, I don't know about the Bordeaux wine. This really is an aged Riesling. And this is a specific quality about Riesling. I think it's, even though it's almost 10 years old, it's still a very fresh and impressive Riesling.
It's an excellent vintage in the Rheingau, I believe, and the wine is, I mean, it's beautiful. It's very, very slowly evolving. I mean, it's still very, very fresh, as you just mentioned.
Absolutely, and this is, yeah, for me, I mean, it's thank you to this occasion. I have the pleasure to taste this wine again, because it's not on sale anymore since many years. So I had to climb down in our treasury cellar and to get a bottle for myself. Well, yeah, so this is what, if you're talking about terroir and if you're talking about soil, then we always keep in mind that we want to produce or to get long-lasting wines. And so that's so nice about Riesling. You can drink it young, but it gets even better with some maturation. And yeah.
Well, I call this little segment Wines of Terroir in an Era of Trends, and Katharina wrote me and said, well, what do you mean exactly? Trends in terms of varieties or winemaking? I was thinking of all sorts of things, but over the weekend I saw an article about the rising popularity of cannabis wines, and this is you know, to our ears probably, to Katharina's for sure, a very strange concept, because the whole really the whole goal with these types of wines is to capture the essence of the vineyard, of the place. And I don't know how all of you feel, but that's what I sense in these wines, is that we've beautifully captured the place. I see my friend Aya. Hi, Aya. Would you like to come on camera and talk about these two wines?
Sure. Hold on one second.
Hi, Michelle. Another sommelier friend of mine just popped up. Aya, please walk us through you want to talk about maybe the two wines?
Okay. So the Cabernet, right? The first one.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I think you said a mineral, and then I think you were mentioning that like a lot of usually it has a lot of oak on it, but I don't feel the overly oak, and I think it's really nice and mineral in the wine as well, and I like the very much the texture about the wines as well.
It's actually just 25% new French oak.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not like really, you know, some of the Bordeaux, white Bordeaux get so much of the white like new oak, and like I get so much like almost like an onion, but I don't feel that much of that in here.
Yeah, that's an interesting taste. You know, for us sommeliers and blind tasters, there's just something about these oak-aged white Bordeaux from places like Pesclagnon that sometimes have this. It's almost like an onion smell, but it's a good thing. I mean, or leek, but it's a very savory note. And the Riesling from the Rheingau.
Yes. Hold on one second.
Sarah, in the meantime, is asking the percentage of varietals for the for the Carbonieux. It's on the back label, but it's 65% Sauvignon, 35 Semillon. Go ahead, Aya.
Great. Okay, so the Rheingau, I get the typical, I feel like dry Riesling of the lemon, apricot, like more the stone fruits, and I get that like a lot of mineral and the petrol, and like we're talking about terroir here, so I feel like that I get so much of it, like almost like a wet, stone, like you can have a like white stone, like a licking almost, and then nice acid and
great acidity too. I mean,
yeah.
it's really persistent and very, very long. It's sort of the length of the wine here. So,
Yeah.
Katharina, big success.
Thank
Yes.
you. I mean,
Like
this
the wine,
one
thank you.
is fermented only on stainless steel, so no oak, because for us, Riesling is such a fragrant aroma that we don't
Yes.
destroy the aroma or disturb the aroma. So this wine should be made by nature, not by us as a winemaker. That's the reason that we intend to not use oak if it's not necessary. And yes, sure. I mean, the time to balance the wine is good. And 2013 was a warm summer, and from the beginning, those wines were had a very good spiciness, very good fruit aroma and acidity for sure. I mean, most important for Riesling is always to have a good acidity, not to be sour, but to have the good acidity to have a backbone for the wine. And Vineyard Dom de Chanay is actually in my bag, so it's a background of me, just in front of the church. And yes, as I said, and the wines are more than 50 years old. So here it's old grapes, old wines, and I think this makes very good natural concentration. So it's nothing more we have to do.
And Katharina, when we were speaking over email, you had mentioned something about even for you, even like putting a Riesling into barrique is sort of, I don't know the term you use, but it sort of distorts the real character and essence of the wine, of the variety and the terroir.
Yeah, but for us it's so interesting because I mean we have also many or few different vineyards, single vineyards, and the character of those vineyards is so different. And for me, yeah, we love to have this difference in the glass and to feel the terroir in the glass, and so we are very careful to disturb the wines during the fermentation by barrique, by using barrique or by interfering it anyway. I mean, it doesn't matter. So yeah. Smooth fermentation and just leaving the nature doing its work.
Beautiful. I wanted to move on to our next set of wines, but that was a really great way to start this tasting. Two really classic, I think, examples of great white Bordeaux and also great dry German Riesling. So Katharina, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, we are going to jump back and get into this presentation and few of the next set of wines. By the way, somebody asked the percentages of the blend in the Carbonieux. It's right here for you. Yeah, we will move on to our next set of wines. And with this, I've asked Louisa Nguyen and Stefan Pauly to speak specifically about how the soil influences the taste of the wines. And I thought this was appropriate because the next two wines come from very particular soils. And we always talk about, we talk about the slate and we talk about the gravelly soil of the Grave. But what I'd really like to get to in this next set of wines is how that influences the taste of the wine. So let's first start by finding our wineries. We're back in Bordeaux, and this entire area south of the city of Bordeaux on the left bank of the Garonne, this is the area of the Grave. Pessac-Léognan in the north, and you'd find Sauternes, Barsac in the southern part of the Grave. But to zoom in a bit more, Louisa, this is where Chateau Chantegrive is located near Podensac, the village of Podensac. And we're really transitioning, I think, in this area from the gravelly soils into some more limestone and clay. You'll have to educate us on that, but I think that's about right for the soil type. And here's an image of the winery. I think, Louisa, you have over 90 hectares here?
Yeah, 96 to be exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so a good-sized estate, and I wanted to include this photo that gives us a sense of the soils at Chateau de Champrive. And then we're also going to taste a wine from Stefan Pauli, and we are again zooming into this area of southwest Germany. Again, it's helpful to, I think, find Frankfurt on the map, and this is actually showing us the location of our 3 German wineries that we're tasting today. But we're actually jumping over to the Mosel now, specifically to the town of Bernkastel on the Mosel, where we will find, and this would be what we would call the middle Mosel, where there's lots of very, very famous vineyards like the Gracker Himmelreich and the Vellener Sonnenhöhe, which we're tasting in just a moment. And there's a fantastic image of the winery and those really steep, we get a sense of how steep these vineyards are on the Mosel. And Stefan, we're tasting Vellener Sonnenhöhe, but I don't think that's the Vellener Sonnenhöhe. It's another sundial vineyard, isn't it?
That is another sundial vineyard, yes. But I mean, you see there on the photo, you see the slopey vineyards, that it's really steep and that you just can work those vineyards by hand. And that's our, uniqueness, that everything has to be done by hand and we just can do hand picking.
Yeah. This of course, there's no way to work, with a tractor here or do mechanical harvesting. It's all done by hand. Well, what I wanted to get to are these very, very specific soil types of these 2 wineries, and just to talk about how they influence the taste. But before I jump back to our gallery view or speaker view, I just wanted to show you a picture of the soils. So we have this very famous blue slate of the middle Mosel and the gravelly soils of the Grave here. So with that, I'm gonna jump back over so I can see all of you and we can start this tasting. And Stefan, maybe we should start with your wine. It's probably from maybe one of the most famous vineyards of the middle Mosel. It's the Vellener Sonnenhöhe. We're tasting a Cabernet today from you.
Exactly. We're tasting I show it here on the bottle, the Vellener Sonnenhöhe Cabernet 2018 vintage. It's a Cabernet, so that would be a really classical Moselle Riesling. Classical meaning low alcohol and still a lot of aromatics and a lot of acidity. And it also comes from a more, let's say, classical vintage again, the 2018 vintage, where it wasn't so hot like the last vintages. So where we still have, or where we really have a lot of minerality from the soil, from the slate, from the blue slate. And that is the important thing to understand, because we come from cool climate up in the north. You always say southwest of Germany, but it's basically, I would say, way up north. So the Moselle or the Rheingau is one of the most northern wine growing areas of the world, which gives us the advantage, of course, of cool climate and normally a lot of rain. As Katerina was saying, this also changes from vintage to vintage. So we didn't have a lot of rain the last 2 vintages, but had a lot of rain this year. But normally we have a lot of rain, so we don't do irrigation. So that's the advantage, I think, for the soil to really show the soil character in the wine, in the Riesling that we taste, because the root system goes down, I would say, something like 10 to 20 feet to look for the water, because we don't do any irrigation. And down there, the rainwater basically picked up all the taste, all the minerality, all the saltiness of the slate. And it's really more concentrated, because you always have to keep in mind that we focus on low alcohol wines. I mean, I think this Cabernet, I have to look it up, on the back label just says 9.5 alcohol. So low alcohol, but still a lot of aromatics and a lot of, I think, slate character in there. And
this is really what I wanted to get to. You know, when we're blind tasting and working towards our sommelier diplomas and things, we're always looking for this slate character in the wine. It doesn't seem that it's possible, or at least scientifically proven, that the vine picks up the slate from the ground. But nonetheless, there is this very distinct, slatey character in the wines. Like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that one wine basically consumes, I would say, around 100 to 120 gallons of rainwater in the growing season, and then you just have the concentration of those mineral water in one bottle of wine. And I mean, that's just the concentration of this, big amount of rainwater that went through the soil, that basically then concentrates into the grapes, and then later through winemaking, of course, through gentle winemaking, as of course we don't do any barrique or anything. We do everything stainless steel, climate controlled fermentation, and again, low alcohol. That's, I think, also really important, because sometimes the alcohol, kills a lot of, tiny aromas or tiny nuances of aromatics. So I think that is the key, that those, Mosel Rieslings really show this, delicate slate aromas.
Yeah, and by the way, Stefan, while you were speaking, Kim Cook says that she's been there and it's beautiful. It really is a region that sort of, when you see it for the first time, the Mosel, it sort of takes your breath away. It's just a stunning place to make wine, and of course the wines have a very special character from there. So
They do, yeah.
Louise, I wanted to get to Chateau de Champgrive and to talk about, well, first of all, you'll have to present your wine, tell us the varietal makeup of the wine, but also tell us about the soil and how it influences the taste.
Yeah, so here we have the bottle. I just want to pour it into myself too. So I'm going to enjoy some. And so I will just talk about a little about Chateaubriand. Chateaubriand was founded in 1966 by Henri Lévesque and Françoise Lévesque. The Lévesque family had started from ground zero, but really from zero, and then become one of the most important and well-known properties in the Grave appellation. All of this in just 60 years, with one generation. So for me, it was quite something. When I just arrived here, it was quite impressive for me to learn this. And now we run 96 hectares of vineyard and 40 hectares for doing white grape, and 96 hectares to do 56 hectares to do the red wine. Yeah. And so talking about the soil, I will start, maybe we can go to the history back in 40,000 years ago. We will go back there because when the terroir was still covered by sea. How do we know that? Is that because the researchers have found fossil of shellfish, they have a lot of shellfish there. We found a lot of fossil shellfish that one can only recognize the existence of the ancient sea in this area, in this location, and which is play a most important role in the composition of the soil today. As you can see, wine, for the grave wine is that the only appellation that can have the name of the soil, Grave appellation here in France. So it's quite unique and special for me, for me to be here with you guys. I can explain for the soil is for the terroir, actually whole by itself, because it's not only the soil that we do for the wine. We have from the west to south, we have been protected by the pine forest from the hot weather, and then we have the river, which acts like a thermal regulator. That is why the terroir can provide 3 types of wine: red wine with a shimmering ruby color, like this. And then we have for the white wine, very aromatic but dry white wine, and also sweet wine. Yeah. So the soil here in Podensac in near Bordeaux, we have clay, we have limestone that retain the water. So first I put it in paper so you can guys see it. Oh, here is some paper of the fossil that can be found.
Yeah.
The shellfish fossil. There we go. And so the ground we have sand, we have pebble, we have gravel, and 2 meter deep down on it we have clay. We have clay and limestone. So actually it's quite deep. So it can keep the water, but retain the water without keeping it. So if it's too dry, the vine can go reach the water that if it's needed. If it's not, it can still go away. It doesn't affect much the ripening of the grape because they can reach the water if they like to, thanks to the clay who's staying 2 meter under the soil, quite far away from the top of the surface. So therefore, it's very suitable for a Merlot. A Merlot, which the clay, the soil that is known to give powerful and concentration wine. In Chantegrive, we have enough clay. So enough clay, which being under 2 meter, that it bring out the wine more elegant and less tannic. We have still the tannic, but less than some, for example, Medoc wine, which is very tannic, and it's less than Medoc wine to compare to see the difference of it. And then we can go back to the pebble one. The pebble, this pebble have the advantage of accumulating the heat from the sun in the morning, and then they restore it in the night for the vine to keep it for favorite the late maturing grape of like Cabernet Sauvignon, because we have 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 50% of Merlot. And the soil usually will be nothing without the weather. Since 10 years from today, we get to experience a lot of maturation from Cabernet Sauvignon. Is thanks to the Indian summer. I don't know if you guys know the meaning of Indian summer.
Yeah, oh, yes, Indian summer, yeah.
Long summer, like a lot of heat. Yeah. So in the late 80s, it's different because in the late 80s, Cabernet Sauvignon were having a hard time to reach maturity. But now with the Indian summer, we starting to harvest a lot more easier Cabernet Sauvignon. So that's how I'm starting to talk about my wine.
Fantastic.
Now, should I present the wine?
Yes, please.
Okay, so in the nose, I was just pretending that I'm going to smell something.
Oh, you know what, Louisa? Since I see some friends on the call, I'm going to ask somebody to taste the wine and give their impression. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Who shall I call on? I see my friend Michelle Fano. She's a great sommelier in Las Vegas. Maybe Michelle, would you like to talk about the red, and we'll ask someone else to taste the white with us?
Sure, Jesse, it was good to see you. I like it. I think it's classic Bordeaux in a lot of ways. So I'm getting that, lead pencil on the nose and a little graphite turned earth. I mean, I know it's young, but I'm still getting some tertiary aromas on it, some forest floor.
Yeah. Even though it's young, it's still very round, It's quite round for a young wine.
Yeah, I think the oak is well integrated in it. It's smooth. It's got a nice dry finish that I like, and a little bit of like gravelly minerality on the finish.
Oh yeah, it has been aging in oak barrel for 12 months. Yeah.
Fantastic, Michelle. Thank you very much. And I see Sarah here, and she would love to taste the Riesling.
Hello, good morning. I'm also in Las Vegas. I work at Bellagio, and now with Michelle. So lovely Riesling. Of course, petrol right away on the nose, flintiness, very fresh, very clean. I'm getting orange rind, overripe peach, and also some dried white petal notes. As far as the palate, I'm sorry, I'm reading my notes. I take a lot of notes. Acidity is medium to medium plus, some slight salinity, which is really nice and surprising. Dried mango, apricots, and of course you get that slate that we were talking about earlier. and the finish just lingers. It's a fantastic finish. So I'm really enjoying this.
We maybe we can, because we're going to move on to our final set of wines, and I thought that was, Sarah, that really interesting that you mentioned the petrol note, which is something we oftentimes think of when we taste Riesling. Maybe Anne or Stefan, if you want to jump in and say something about that before we move on.
Sure. The petrol note. Okay. It normally comes with aged Riesling, of course. So if you have a Riesling that is 20 years old, of course, it shows much more petrol than the young ones. But of course, in the fruity cabinet like this one, it already starts. And again, I think this petrol note, you can say, in general, it also comes from the slate. I mean, the terroir we're talking about. Because in the end, slate is something like petrol. So slate will go into petrol in, let's say, in 100 million years. So there's this minerality which you can also smell at a gas station, somehow also a little bit in the slate. So I think that's where it comes from.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Sarah. And
what you think about this, but I think that's an explanation at least.
Yeah, it's perfect, and thank you, Sarah, for the tasting, and Stefan for the explanation. And by the way, Michelle Kim said the graphite note was like spot on. She was looking for it, and when you said it, she's like, and I oftentimes think Cabernet Franc has this character, so that's probably where that's coming from. That was awesome. We're going to move to our last two wines of the day, but let me jump back to the presentation so we can find the next two wineries on the map. One moment. Okay, so we're, by the way, there's the technical information for both wines. The Riesling, of course, was entirely in stainless steel, inox tanks. Chantegrive saw 50% new barrique, and pretty classic, typical blend of 50-50 Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Oh, sorry, there's no Cabernet Franc here at all. Luisa, I'm sorry about that. Did I get that right?
No, we don't have Cabernet Franc.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just the pencil lead note. When Michelle said it, I found it in the wine too, and I often associate it with Franc. So sorry about my mistake.
Sorry, sometimes you can think of that too, you know.
Great. So let's move on to our last two wines of the tasting today. I'm going to ask Brigitte Roulier-Lucert and Anne Eifelspoor to talk about classic styles for modern markets. This should be, I think, really interesting discussion. But let's first find the wineries on the map. We can jump to Bordeaux first, and this is a wine from Chateau d'Alum is a wine from Fronsac, which is a very important historic appellation on the right bank of Bordeaux. West of the city of Libourne, if we went east of there, we'd find Saint-Emilion and Pomerol. But zooming in a bit more, we can find it here near the Dordogne River, near the city of Libourne. I want Brigitte to speak to us about Fronsac and what makes it unique and special. But there's the very modern Chateau d'Alum winery, and very modern on the interior as well. So that's the winery we will be tasting. The wine we'll be tasting from Fronsac, and then from Germany we are going to go back to the Mosel, but a bit of a different part of the middle Mosel, a little further down the river, or is it up the river? We are going to up, yes, Trittenheim. So we can locate it here on the map. There's a very, very famous vineyard here called the Apotheke, and I believe Anne has a lot of experience with that site. So we'll be tasting a wine from Heinz Eifel. And something here, Anne, I wanted to ask you about. You're working in the cellar here, cleaning some tanks, and what's this all about?
Yeah, that's a funny picture. Yes, we made some funny pictures. So usually I'm working in the cellar, but I'm also traveling for sure. So I'm doing everything. And here you see the combination.
I love it. Okay, so we're gonna. Let me first. Let me jump over back to the presentation or to the speaker view. One moment. Sorry, there we go. So I'm back to seeing the two of you. So what I wanted to speak about with both of you today is this idea of classic styles for modern markets, because we're really talking about two very, very classic wine producing regions with a long history. But what I'm interested to hear is how, for example, how is Bordeaux sort of adjusting to this idea that we really don't have so many white tablecloth French restaurants, not as many as we used to. There's still a few very good ones in Las Vegas for sure, but we're eating a lot of ethnic food, we use a lot of spice in our cooking. So this is one idea I had about that. But I think where we should start, Brigitte, let's have you introduce your wine to start, and then maybe we can get into our theme.
Okay, so I'm owner of the chateau in Fronsac appellation, so you speak about Fronsac. Fronsac is close to Saint-Emilion in Pomerol in Bordeaux, and Dalem is in Fronsac, and it is a family vineyard. I'm the fourth generation, and I took over the vineyard in the year 2002 with the 15 hectares, and enlarged the vineyard, and today I have 40 hectares. This is wine. I have a new winery because I need to make the wine, and this is so now I have a big cellar and the wine from maturing the wine with a new oak, and Dalem is the terroir, which is chalky clay. It's Fronsac, you have a little micro terroir, and in Dalem each terroir is very different. And every year I have the feeling that the wine is different, because when I enlarge the vineyard, I have something new, and the wine the wine is a lot of character, you know. But I make the wine very fruity, very soft tannins. This is it was difficult to make, but I love this kind of wine. I don't like to don't harvest with too much mature on some maturation. I don't like that. I want to keep the fruit. And I like the good balance in the wine.
Brigitte, this question sort of ties into our theme, is that this is a very, very high percentage of Merlot. What was the percentage of Merlot?
I find I have for the vintage I had 90% Merlot and Cabernet Franc.
90% Merlot with Cabernet Franc, and 2018 is quite a warm, dry vintage where we expect the wines to have a lot of ripeness. But one thing I find that's sort of trending, especially on the right bank of Bordeaux, is that even though we're talking about Merlot, you're finding ways to keep the freshness in the wines. And I'm really curious how you're doing that, because this is really, I think, important for where the market is going. What people want to taste in wine is this freshness. It wasn't so long ago we all wanted power. Now we want something a little lighter. And how are you keeping the freshness?
The freshness, it depends, of course. For my English is not very good, but I try to explain.
It's perfect.
As we have fresh terroir. I mean, we have the roads are very deep. And we make very fresh wine, and we have the change with the climate at the moment, and this is a question of terroir, and we don't have the same terroir than Pomerol, and it's not the same with the Saint-Emilion. Fronsac is very special and with its own character, but each vineyard in Fronsac can be also different, because you have a lot of micro terroir.
And is it a matter of, in 2018, is it a matter of picking earlier, or what do you do so that this doesn't become so heavy? It still has a certain lift and lightness to it.
The vintage 18?
Yeah.
You want we taste together or no?
Sure, we can taste together, but I was just wondering, do you pick earlier? How do you?
So in fact, I don't pick up, I don't harvest very early, not too early, and I don't wait just the maturation. And I harvest with good timing, you know. And
Perfect.
sorry for that. And, so we harvest everything by hand with the cagette, you know, and we make a big selection of the grapes, and we have a sorting table, new sorting table. It's a system of the dosimetry, you know, what is a dosimetry sorting. So
Yes.
we only the base, and we make a big selection. So the wine I like, the style of wine I like, the wine with character. We have very fruity wine, but quite body wine, but with a soft tannins and freshness also.
Great. Well, I mentioned earlier, my idea behind our theme for this tasting for these two wines was, classic styles for modern markets. And I just mean, one thing I was thinking about was this idea that we don't have so many of these white tablecloth French restaurants these days. Certainly, there's a lot less of those in Chicago where I live than there used to be. But we have a lot of restaurants that are more global flavors, lots of Asian flavors coming onto the table, and a wine like this in this style, I think, can work really, really well with that. And Anne, I wanted to, I thought this was a perfect way to transition to your wine. There's always been a very famous restaurant in Las Vegas. It's a Thai restaurant, Lotus of Siam. Guys, is it still open? Did it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes,
good.
it's still open. The original. The original.
This place is very famous. Of course, it's Thai with very spicy flavors, lots of heat, but they are known for using Riesling to balance these flavors. They've got a great selection of Riesling, and I was thinking about your wine and this restaurant together. And I'll ask you to present your wine and maybe talk about this theme.
Yeah, I think a nice sweetness makes a perfect match with spicy food. So it's probably in this restaurant like this. So and Riesling is one of the probably of the favorite varieties for this. And if you have a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of acidity, and this is very well balanced, it's a beautiful match with spicy food. And you have a low alcohol, but still a big taste experience. So yes, and together with Asian dishes, it's a great match.
Perfect. Can you tell us about the Spätlese that we're tasting today from Heinz Eifel?
Yes.
We're tasting the 2019.
Yes. You have the right bottle. Yes.
Yes.
So that's the Spätlese. That's from the Middle Mosel. So perhaps I can explain you very quick what we are doing. So we have a wine estate there, and so we have since 1641 in our family wine, and but since around about 20 years, or it's around about 20 years ago, when my father started with the Römerhof company. So in our wine estate, we have our own vineyards. They are located in the Middle Mosel Valley, and different vineyard sites. And then he wanted to make, he wanted to produce a little bit bigger volumes, and in his opinion, for him it was he wanted to transport a little bit more of the Mosel Riesling into the world, and a little bit less complicated, because sometimes I'm a big fan and I love our single vineyard sites, and that's the thing what we do in our wine estate. But with the Heinz Eifel wines, the experience, or the goal was that we want to transport what Germany wine can be, but without too complicated, because sometimes the people, they don't really understand what is Trittenheimer Apotheke. Is it a vineyard site? Is it the name of the producer, or what is it? And so, yes, to make it possible also for people who are not so involved in German wine, but to get into it, he tried to make it easy. And here we have the Spätlese, and we have only the yellow S on the label, the S from the Spätlese, and the color of the leather should give you an idea of the ripeness the grapes had when we harvested them. So that's the idea of this. In this line, we have also a cabinet with a green K and A with a red Auslese, the red A for the Auslese. So that gives you an idea of what the wine is. And yes, and all of these wines are from they're Riesling, and they're from the Mittelmosel Valley. Yes, and so my father, Heinz Eifel, he stands with his name for the quality of the wine, and I'm the winemaker of the wines. Yes, and I think it's a great light Riesling, but it offers the typical Riesling flavors. But it's very easy drinking wine, and yes, it is what it is.
Well, I see Leslie Rawls on the screen, and there's two of you. So it's perfect. Maybe one of you would like to taste the Riesling with us, and one would like to taste the Chateau d'Alem. Starting maybe with, well, wherever you like.
Goodness. Yeah, definitely. I apologize because we have dogs barking in the background.
Oh, okay.
They are feisty. I'm Leslie. Andrea. So one of us, do you want to do
Riesling?
So she wants the Riesling. I'll do the Chateau d'Alem. One of the things that I really loved about this one actually was, I forget who said it, but the soft tannins immediately. I mean, that's what you get the soft velvety texture in your mouth. And I love that it did work for us. It worked front to back. Like you get that slight bitterness, but it's not overwhelming. You just this nice progression through, I think. Hold on. Definitely, I think that there's that bold fruit at the front. You get that nice juicy, and then it just mellows out. I think that I'm honestly surprised with how smooth it was. I wasn't anticipating it so soft and easy on the in your mouth. So yeah, that's where I definitely do feel like there's that little bit of I can sense the clay in there. I think that that's what gives it that nice little bit of minerality at the end, that little bit of almost like savory flavors at the end is what I get. So
yeah, I agree. I was really impressed by the balance of the wine, especially given that, like I said, the vintage is quite powerful, and we expect the Merlot to be powerful, but there's great balance and freshness in that wine. So I agree with you.
Fresh is a fantastic word for this wine, and that was the very first word I wrote on here. Like absolutely fresh is a great one.
Great.
Okay. And in terms of the Riesling, I got a lot on the nose, more like very light petrol, but almost like cotton, like a very clean, crisp earthiness to it. And then on the palate, it's very juicy, a lot of peach, a lot of fresh orange, and then it finishes with almost like a salty on the back of my palate. So that's how I
agree. Yeah, the sweetness into the salinity, I think balances it fantastically. Personally, I think it really makes it shine. That it's not overly sweet, but it definitely. I can see how, like you were saying, Lotus of Siam. I could see how a spicy restaurant with this would balance it out perfectly.
And first of all, I agree with the salty, the salinity note. That's something I wrote as well. But Anne, would you reveal how much sugar is here? Because you don't feel the sugar at all.
No, you don't feel the sugar that much, but it's still 65 grams.
Yeah, incredible. It's just that there's so much acidity. It's just beautifully balanced.
The acidity and the salty parts, the minerality, and that balances the sugar very good.
Great. Everyone, that is our hour together. We were trying to answer questions throughout the presentation. So normally we leave a little time at the end for some Q&A, but I want to be respectful of our guests' time, all of your time, because first of all, in Germany and Bordeaux, it's dinner time. So thank you so much for taking time this evening to taste with us, and to our for sure, I want to thank our everyone that attended today and tasted through the wines. I believe there's a survey that will come to you, and we'd love to hear your feedback, how we can make these tastings even better. But I loved the interaction and all of the, thank you for those that tasted with us. That's great. And with that, I want to say thank you to our entire panel. So Anne Eifelspoor, Louisa Nguyen is here. Thank you for that. Katharina Moritz, thank you so much. Brigitte Roulier-Lucere, and where is Stefan? I don't see him anymore. Stefan Polly was here. I'm Jesse Becker, and thank you for participating in this Clink Different tasting. We hope you enjoyed it, and fill out that survey. We'd love to hear back from you. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Merci.